Right. All right, we're gonna keep it moving. I see we have a panel discussion coming up next, which I think is gonna be very powerful. We actually, well, I'm not gonna introduce, I'm just gonna introduce IRVINE, PECK'S-AGAYA, and AILEEN KEAYS, and they'll introduce the panel and talk a little bit about what's going on with their panel. But this is a presentation by the Institute of Municipal and Regional Policy, IMRP. And so please welcome them to the conference.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us here. Jennifer, I think I have a bone to pick with you because you did not tell me I was coming after Daryl or after this video because I'm like crying, emotional, there's a lot going on. But thank you for having us here today. I was thinking about how to introduce myself, thinking about my professional background, and I want to talk about all my accomplishments, but I think, my name is IRVINE, and I would say I'm a daddy's girl. We're talking about fathers, we're talking about how important they are. My dad was incarcerated when I was in middle school, and for the longest time, I was embarrassed about it. But the truth of the matter is my dad is also who built me and who taught me to be the woman that I am today, who taught me to never settle for less than my best, and who really have shown me that I am a queen, I'm a Black queen, that I can go and pursue my dreams. So when DCF asked us to participate in this conference, at first I was like, I gotta tell them about my dad because my dad has done all these things and he's great. I don't ever think about the fact that he was incarcerated. It's just something that happened. My dad is my superhero. But, we thought that it would be better to actually hear from current dads who may have been involved with the criminal justice system at some point, but that don't really matter because they're dads, and I'm sure to their kids, which y'all would get to hear, to their kids, they're a superhero. So I'm going to share my screen, and before we get to start with we have Keith Davis and Demetrius. Before we get to start and dive into the panel, we're going to give y'all a little presentation. Don't get bored with us, but it's going somewhere. So I'm with IMRP, specifically the Connecticut Children with Incarcerated Parents Initiative. Again, quickly, we want to go over an introduction of IMRP to Children with Incarcerated Parents Initiative. I know we don't love data, but I'm sure this day is actually super important. And then y'all get to hear from the wonderful fathers that we have here today. So the Institute for Municipal and Regional Policy, IMRP, is at the University of Connecticut. We are a nonpartisan university-based organization whose purpose is to effectively inspire and sustain a just, equitable, and inclusive Connecticut through independent research and evaluation, public policy analysis and development, as well as community engagement. Now, the Children with Incarcerated Parents Initiative, which I feel so lucky to work in because of my own background, we were created in 2008. Since 2008, IMRP has been receiving funding from the Connecticut General Assembly to administer competitive grants for providing positive interventions for at-risk youth whose parents and or family members have been incarcerated. So the IMRP has continually sought to gain an additional understanding of what children who had incarcerated parents may need, the services that they need through research, evaluation, outreach activities, with really the goal of using this data and knowledge to inform public policy development and other intervention. With the funding that we have been receiving, we've become Connecticut's Resource Center for Children with Incarcerated Parents. We provide trainings. We have scholarship for students, currently students at the University of Connecticut and students at Central Connecticut. And these are students who have been impacted by incarceration of not just their parents, but also loved ones. Because sometimes people who may not be your legal guardians have had that impact. And once they become incarcerated, it really leaves a void in children's lives. We do reports and research. We are a liaison for the community, policymakers, and we also do consulting and technical assistance. Now, one thing that I am very proud of that we have is an interactive children's page One thing that I personally found when my dad was arrested and I was going to visit him for the first time, I was confused, I was scared. And my parents, honestly, my mom, my grandmother, she really didn't really know how to explain it to me. And so this page right here, I think could be helpful. Hopefully you're still able to see. It's really helpful because it shows different things. So if children are going to the courthouse, if you're working with children who may need to go to the courthouse, our page here shows all of the people who work in the courthouse, what they can expect. One thing that I find pretty neat is that there is here, they can see the prison. They'll be able to see what the parent may eat. You might be sitting at home wondering what is mom doing, what is dad doing, and the waiting room and contact visit. So that was very quickly my introduction of CIP. Now my colleague AILEEN is going to go over this survey that we did, and we'll dive straight into the panel.
Hi, everyone. So thank you, IRVINE, for that great introduction. And I promise this will be super quick because I know we really want to hear from the fathers, not from us. So I just want to talk very briefly about a survey that we concluded at the New Britain Superior Courthouse about the needs that were created in children's daily lives by the arrest of a caregiver. Next slide, please. So we did the study because I think we are starting to really recognize that caregivers incarceration is associated with negative child outcomes such as mental health and physical health problems, antisocial behavior, and potentially youth incarceration. It's been linked with developmental delay, speech and language problems, behavioral issues, of course, and PTSD and trauma. We believe that these negative effects are due in part to gaps that are created in children's daily lives created by the by the caregivers' incarceration. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we interviewed 45 caregivers who were being held at the New Britain Courthouse for their arraignment. They talked about the care that they provided to 108 children in the months immediately prior to their arrest. So these parents or caregivers had just been arrested and are waiting at the courthouse for their arraignment. Next slide, please. Findings. Like I said, I'm going through this fast because I know you want to get to the fathers. So for these children, the outcomes I wanted to highlight are just how much support these caregivers, who most were men, how many of these caregivers were providing just how much support to children in the month prior. So these are ranked in order of how much involvement. So financial support was number one, but then listening and helping with personal problems. And I know that's been talked about a little bit earlier. Helping at least once a week with homework, talking with teachers and coaches, transportation, watching the child, being the only one to watch the child at least once a week. So it shows just how involved these arrested caregivers were with children in the month immediately prior to their arrest. Next slide, please. Supports by caregiver gender. Male versus female caregivers. 86.3% of male caregivers were providing at least 3 types of support to children right before their arrest. And 96.5% of female caregivers were providing at least 3 types of support. Next, please. Thank you. Legal guardians versus non-legal guardians. This is something I really want to highlight. 90% of guardians provided at least 3 types of support, but more than 86% of non-guardians were providing at least 3 types of support. So to me, this is important because when a child enters child welfare, I think it may be easy to assume that a non-guardian is not providing as much support, and they may be overlooked as potential caregivers for a child if that child needs to be removed from the home. And so I wanted to point this out as demonstrating that right before an arrest, these caregivers, even if they're not guardians, may be providing significant support on a regular basis to children. One statistically significant difference, was that non-guardians were actually more likely to help with homework and other projects. And I just want to quickly say how I thought that was funny, because when I got with my husband, he had a son already, and I was immediately the homework person. And so when that statistic came out, I laughed. But anyway, next slide. Thank you. I think this is the last slide for the study, so we're almost there. Living arrangement. Caregivers that did versus did not live with children prior to the arrest. Again, of course, 100% of caregivers that lived with the child prior to their arrest provided at least 3 types of support, but 77.5% of caregivers that did not live with the child provided at least types of support. So again, this gets at potentially not overlooking, and most of these caregivers were male. So trying to not overlook or trying to consider males who are actively involved with children, who may not be guardians, who may not be living with children, but are providing active, direct involvement with children, may be potential caregivers moving forward if a child needs to be removed from the home. I think that might be it for this. Okay, great. So I know we're going to talk about the fathers panel, and IRVINE will introduce two of the fathers. I wanted to quickly introduce William Holmes. As IRVINE had mentioned when she was briefly introducing our work, one of the things we do is provide technical assistance and consultation. Our initiative met William Holmes, who is currently incarcerated at Corrigan, because he has developed a fatherhood program while in prison. He is serving a very lengthy sentence, but he recognized while in the facility the important role that he and the other fathers in the facility can and should play in their children's lives, and how important it is for the children, but also for the fathers. And he felt that the fatherhood programs or the parenting programs that were currently offered in the facility were maybe more focused on once you get out, helping the father to prepare for once they're out and how they can be an engaged father. He really wanted to focus on how you can still be and should still be a very important and involved father while incarcerated. And so the curriculum, he developed this whole curriculum, all of the activities, the readings he developed. And so what we tried to do when we were invited to participate in this conference, we thought about William. I said, William needs to be part of this. We need to get him on this panel. We made a request hoping he could participate virtually live. If not, we were hoping we could pre-record a video of him presenting the work and his curriculum. Unfortunately, those methods did not work out. So what I did was I sent him questions to as if he was a panelist, and he provided his responses in a letter to me. And he is excited and has entrusted me with sharing his words. And so I'm extraordinarily honored with that. I feel a little uncomfortable speaking for him. I do think he should be speaking for himself, but we tried, it didn't work. So I'm honored that he has entrusted me to speak on his behalf. So this is William Holmes. And so I will be, as we go through the questions, I will be reading his responses to some of the items. So that's it. And he wanted everybody, he has said that if anyone wants his full letter, he wants it to be made available to anyone, and his contact information, his mailing address. We were going to put it in the chat. So if anyone wants to reach out to him directly, he really wants to be more involved with fatherhood work, supporting fathers, supporting children during parental incarceration. So with no further ado, I will pitch it back to IRVINE so she can introduce our other two wonderful fathers. Thank you.
Thank you, AILEEN. So the quote there is, I'm not a weekend dad, I'm a parent-teacher conference dad. Bring my kids to the doctor, dad. Honestly, reading it, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because I wanna be able to see people. Honestly, reading it, I have goosebumps because that's something Demetrius said, and it rings true. And I hope that as you're listening to this panel, as you get to hear from Demetrius and Keith, you remember that they're not just weekend dads. Demetrius Chamblee is the owner of Madam's Beauty Supply with his wife, Latoya Chamblee, and children, Shamia and Demetrius Jr. He was born and raised in Hartford, Connecticut, a graduate of Manchester Community College, where he received his business administration degree, and he's a production manager in the aerospace industry. Demetrius is a community leader, a community investor, a community leader, book club founder, advocate for reducing recidivism, and increasing the engagement of active fathers. Keith Davis, he is a father, a published author, mentor, motivational speaker, a personal trainer, and a problem solver. With a passion for helping others, he founded Let's Go, speaking life into students, teachers, athletes, coaches, organizations, and the masses. I believe his monologue was shown last year, and Demetrius will be shown tomorrow. Those were powerful. Now I need to do my best to not cry throughout this because those men are wonderful and they have powerful stories to share. So without further ado, I will kick in with questions. And my first question, also, if I missed anything, Demetrius and Keith, feel free to make sure to bring that up. So my first question is, how has your child or children benefited from maintaining a relationship with you? Y'all take the floor.
All right, Keith, you want to go first, or?
I'll let you go first, brother.
All right, so how have my child benefited? Throughout the process with my daughter growing up, I've been fighting for more parental time. I've been fighting for custody for my daughter, and it was a struggle for a very long time, up until recently, within the last few years, that I was actually awarded through DCF. They had to step in, and I was awarded and vested full custody. And so I was able to have more time with my daughter. Before this had happened, my daughter was actually doing very, very bad in school. She was in special education. She wasn't doing right, getting into a lot of things inside of the school. And I've always stated the case that she wasn't in the best environment for her to succeed. And how my daughter benefited, since my daughter has been with me in a rapid 6-month turnaround, 8 months, she is now an honor roll student within her school. She is amongst the top 4 students right now within her school, and she has her eyes set on going to college. She wants to be a nurse or potentially a doctor, and she has turned it around dramatically. And that's just through me and her just working throughout her school and just supporting her throughout the entire process. So it's been amazing to see this turnaround and us actually build this bond.
Wow, that was amazing, brother. Wow, kudos to you, man. Definitely. Well, I have been involved in my daughter's life since she was a baby, since she was born. I was there when she took her first steps. I was there. I taught her how to read, do her letters, her numbers, the alphabet, taught her how to ride a bike. Was there doing homework from kindergarten, first grade, just helping her along. And she's benefited from me being in her life. And I'm the one that's really the beneficiary, you know what I mean? But she has benefited by seeing me struggle, seeing me go through different things and understanding that life happens to you. She's a track star. She had the #1 time in the state a few years ago. And then she faced some adversity with being in a car accident and going through surgeries and overcoming many obstacles in her life. And I think she got that from seeing me struggle and go through the system, go through just different situations in my life, meeting my birth mother, dealing with issues of being adopted, feeling worthless and things of that nature. I think she's seen the growth. Like, we grew up together, kind of. We're still growing up together. So her seeing me overcome everything that I faced and continue to push, she's the same way, and I'm learning for her, she's learning from me. So our relationship is so tight. And I'm just grateful to be able to just be a father. Me not knowing my biological father was really a catalyst to me making sure no matter what lifestyle I was living, no matter what I was doing, I'm going to be in my daughter's life regardless. She's going to know who I am, right? So even today, we're going to Orlando to see my birth brother, my brother that I just met last year. So she's seeing the relationship that I'm building with someone that I didn't grow up with, but she's seeing a part of her being her blood relative that I never got to see growing up. So, it's just a blessing to be able to show her these things and to be who I am today, right? She's now an 11th grade, a junior, and she's, looking at HBCUs. She wants to go to a Division I school. So she's blowing my mind with the goals that she has and the things that she's able to accomplish today. Last year, she made states in track with an injured knee. So it's like, wow, to see her push through and use my boy Demetrius' word, persevere through the things that she has is just amazing, man. And I'm just grateful.
Thank you. And Mr. Holmes sent a beautiful letter, something that his daughter wrote. And now, AILEEN, if you could please read that for us, that would be great.
Sure, and please excuse the reading, but Mr. Holmes's response was, I received a Father's Day card a few years back that captures the answer to this question, and only because of the importance of this moment, I share my child's words. This is now the quote. Daddy, I love you. You've taught me so much, how to be strong in my darkest hours, how to laugh and write through my pain, how to love the people that hurt me the most, how to survive, how to really live despite my circumstances. You've held in all my secrets. You've carried my hurts. You never once judged me, but just simply held my hand. You've guided me. You've even loved me more than myself. Even when I wanted to give up on everything, you never gave up on me. Thank you for being my father, all quotes, exclamation mark. Thank you for just being there. Thank you for not giving up on yourself. Thank you for teaching me never to run from reality. Thank you for teaching me to face my fears. Thank you for holding it down. Thank you for not holding your head down. Thank you for being my strength. Thank you for giving me peace, joy, and true happiness. You mean the world to me. You mean the world to me, so much more to me. Sorry. Thank you for not being a failure, even when you feel like you've failed. I wouldn't be where I am today without you. You are my hero, my backbone, my heart, my ears, smiley face, ready to always listen and hear. In the midst of my darkest hours, you've been a light, my light. Continue to be encouraged. I love you. I miss you. I'm always thinking of you, and know that I'm good. Always, smiley face. I am my daddy's daughter, all caps. That's the letter. And Mr. Holmes afterward had written that every father and child has an inalienable right to establish such a moment between each other. To intervene or obstruct in any way what it takes for such a moment will cause irreparable harm.
Thank you. Speaking of moments, if I may, Demetrius and Keith, y'all shared some moments with us. Would you mind sharing those moments with the panel? What your daughters have written about you, or what would they say about you?
Yes. So a few weeks back, I received a text. I'm at work, and I received a text from my daughter. Now, she's not supposed to be on the phone, so I don't even know why she had her phone, but she sent me a text at about 10:30, and this is what she said. She said, at 10:30 a.m., my phone turned on in the corner of my desk. I looked over and smiled very hard, thinking about how my father never doubted me at anything, always been by my side when I needed him. He is wonderful at everything he does. He never made me hate myself like other parents. I'm so glad we have the bond that we have now, because without you, I wouldn't possibly know what to do. I love you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing, brother. Now my document, I believe I sent it to you. I'm not sure what it said word for word, but my daughter was also in school doing an assignment, not supposed to be on the phone, but she took a picture of the assignment she was doing, and the question I wasn't able to read, but the response was somewhere along the lines of, I've seen my father used to drink, and seeing him change his life and become who he is, and motivating people, and being able to be someone that I look up to is amazing. And It was somewhere along those lines. So it goes to show that in school on an assignment, she chose me as whatever the question was, who has impacted your life. I believe that the question was somewhere along those lines. But it just goes to show that the work that I've been putting in, the things that I've been telling her is not falling on deaf ears, which sometimes we think, but it just goes to show that no matter where you come from, no matter your background, no matter your past, you can make an impact on your child's life, incarcerated, whatever the case is. You can be a staple in your child's life.
Thank you so much. And it was powerful to me to read, because I saw, this girl, she's in school. I was a teacher, so I know they're not supposed to be on their phone, but she's thinking about her dad, right? She could be thinking about a bunch of different things, but the fact that the both of them were thinking about their dad shows you how big of an influence they've had in their lives. And that influence shouldn't be taken lightly. One thing that I think, when dads are incarcerated, sometimes they're easily discarded. We kind of forget that they can father from afar. And I find very powerful that Mr. Holmes created the fatherhood program. So we did ask him what benefit he hoped that the children of the fathers who are in his program may get because of the father's participation. And I think that is important to hear in case, you're considering bringing some kids to visit their dad in prison and see some of the benefits that such programs can have.
Thank you. So yes, Mr. Holmes had responded, I hope children will receive the benefit of having an awareness of and appreciation for their father's presence in their life, even though physically separated. This awareness of their father's presence translates into a child thinking of, 1, what will my father think or feel if I do this or say that? 2, what would my father do or want me to do in this situation that shows I respect and love myself? 3, I can't wait to tell my father about this. I know I could trust him and he won't judge me. And if I could just quickly, to your point, Irvine, I completely agree. And I'm glad you brought up the lengthy sentence, because to me, it just shows how important these relationships can be in spite of lengthy sentences, and that ensuring those relationships can continue and sustain, even if there's permanent guardianship that needs to happen, if there's another parent whose rights are terminated, but allowing the child and the parent to still have a meaningful relationship and be able to ask these questions and get their parents' advice and feel like they can brag to their parent, and I think are so important. But
thank you. I was fine. All of a sudden I'm coughing, but it's okay. We're gonna hear these dads and what they have to say. So the next question, please bear with me. The state's Fatherhood Initiative, which we did hear about earlier today, held focus group with incarcerated fathers and dads in a halfway house. They talked about how they felt that all criminal justice agencies usually ignored the fact that they were fathers or that was actually held against them. So they usually thought if they were a dad, they would be told, why did you do that? Why did you do that if you're a dad? That means you didn't care about your kids, or their sentence would be harsher. Now, what could police officers, courts, corrections, halfway houses, DCF workers, what can they do to better support kids and their dads, from your opinion?
From my opinion, as far as what they can do to support, I think as far as just giving a fair shot, giving a fair chance. I can speak from my personal experience with my daughter's mother. There was a long history of DCF cases, and I mean more than 8 or 9 different DCF cases. And when a case was brought up, it was almost like when children was taken from the home, even in regards of myself, who had no cases at all, it was almost like, Mr. Chamblee, who else do you have that the children can actually go to? Like, is there someone else? And I'm just saying, like, me, I'm her dad. I'm the one that has a stable environment, a stable home, married over 10 years, a working job over 10 years. I'm the one who's the stable person, but it just seemed like, you could just feel that contention that, like, you know, the dad wasn't just enough. So I would just say just a fair shot, and to reach out to other people like myself in the community who have taken this shot and run with it, to be able to have as a support system as well.
Exactly. I think one thing that helped me was actually being heard, and really knowing that, you know, my daughter was and is, you know, one of the best things that ever happened to me. Really hearing what I'm saying and actually helping me to fix whatever I'm going through, right? And also, like, right now it's Christmas time, so one thing that allowed me to you know, be present when I wasn't present, was a program. A couple of friends of mine from Shiloh Baptist Church in Middletown had a program for incarcerated parents where Josh and Sana Cotton, they allowed the inmate to fill out a form, and you will be able to send your child a gift or two. So I think that was amazing. So supporting in ways like that, because, man, Christmas time, I'm going all out, you know, because you want your child to feel special. I mean, Christmas, you know, it's the holidays, you're not there, and filling that void just a little bit, I think helped out tremendously. Like, wow, my father is thinking of me. So programs like that, listening, just being real, real transparent and listening, and not grouping everyone together. We're all individuals. So if I'm making an effort to see my child or to be in the child's life, whether I'm going to court, whether I'm in jail, whether halfway house, whatever the case may be, know that I'm sincere and really understand that, you know, I want to be a father, and just help me out. That's it.
How have biases against you because of your past impacted your child? So
I would say the biases of just the record of fathers being involved in the entire cases in terms of DCF, and not just being a checkbox type of thing, and just getting the fathers involved in my perspective, in my case. We had situations happen where we would have a DCF case happen, and I actually have my daughter throughout the process, and there would be another DCF case going on with mom, and I'll actually hear about it, let's say 60, 90 days down the line. And when they call me, it's almost like, oh, we're going to be closing the case. And it's like, we just wanted to make sure we reach out to you. And it's just like, do you guys know that my daughter actually is with me, court appointed? And it's then they have to do the backtracking. But I think that's the biases. It's just like the father is just, he's not involved. He's not involved. There's no need to contact him. And if it is, it's just a last second thing. So those biases, I think, needs to be worked on. And also too, understanding that the positive effects, as what I spoke about with my daughter, and the positive effects it has had on her mentally, also as well academically, and the same thing like Keith spoke about. When we look at those things and how well the child responds to this in a positive manner, we need to start looking at those things and start doing away with those biases. And we have evidence of real life evidence of this as well.
Absolutely. The biases surrounding me having a relationship with my daughter or affecting her was seeing that the record, right, on paper. My past has not allowed me to coach some of her teams, has allowed me to not like be involved at the early stages, at the grade level in her school, because of the record, because the school actually sees and, no, I'm sorry, you can't partake in this particular event, or you cannot help in this manner because of your record, but I'm a father. The first education is in the home, and I taught my daughter well. She was getting great grades. And so I think the biases surrounding having a record has nothing to do with me being a father. You know, I think you need to look at the person, because a lot of times what happens is the police, workers, whoever's involved in these cases, fabricate the facts to make their case look better than it actually is, or to make you look worse than you actually are. And a lot of times, that's what you're judged by. That's what you're judged by, not who you are. You're judged by the mistakes you made or the bad decisions that you once made, and I don't think it's fair. Those negative decisions, or those bad decisions that I once made, it really doesn't matter, because right now I'm in the school system. Right now I'm making changes in kids' lives on a daily basis. So if you're still going by that, then you're cheating not only me, you're cheating the kids. You know, you're cheating the kids out of having the person that they see or their superhero. You're really, you know, handicapping them from becoming the best version of themselves. So yeah, that's all I got to say on that, man. Thank you.
If I may, I'd like to share something. To me, another bias that I think, at least as a child growing up, that impacted me about my dad's record was silence. I didn't feel like I could bring out some of the, I didn't think I could express myself at school, because my understanding of DCF as a kid was that I'll be taken away. I'll be taken away from my family. I'll be taken away from my dad. And I'll never forget one time I was upset at school. So people knew my dad's background, and I had a bad day. And I remember I had a bad day, and the next day I skipped school. And I remember my school sent the police to my house. That was the first thing they did. They sent the police to my house. And my first thought was, again, as the child's mind, I was in middle school. I thought, okay, the police, they're gonna call DCF, I'm gonna be taken away. You know, I'm gonna be taken away because my dad did something way back. I don't even know what my dad did. To this day, I don't know. I don't care. But I'm gonna be taken away. And that transpired in me throughout my high school. I just refused to share. I wouldn't seek help from adults because I didn't want them to look at my dad as he's passed. And to me, it was weird that they sent the police to my home because they were afraid that my dad had done something to me. But my dad was the one who did my homework. My dad was the one who took me wherever I needed to go. I don't know how my dad figured it out. He tried his best to help me do my hair. That was all the things that he did. And I remember I was the first Black valedictorian at my school. And all that was because of my dad. But all that my school saw was a man that needed to be taken out of my house, or I thought that they needed to separate me from him just because of his background and because they didn't seek to try to understand, to try to see who he was. And that to me has, forever stayed with me. And I just, want to remind us that those biases, it might be a folder on our desk, it might be a paper, but it is a child, it is a dad. And those people have real life impact. So sorry. So my other question is, what harm do you think is done to children when they're not allowed to build or maintain a bond with their dads because of their former background with the criminal justice system?
So before I answer that question, I want to speak again on the biases. DCF has, I feel, made some great strides. And in the great strides, Brother Abdul, who's on the line now, he's one of the brothers that stays in constant communications with myself and Keith, and we're constantly involved in the community. So whatever DCF is doing in terms of working with Abdul and getting this message out here, helping us to be able to have resources, it helps. It helps dramatically. Also, Brother Anthony Gay as well, we worked on a couple of things too. So definitely we need this, because what we look at DCF, there's a perception that DCF has come to take. That's how we look at DCF inside of the community. But DCF is working, and we need DCF to continue to work on to be able to give. And one of those things you can do in order to give is to work with people inside of the community. If you got other fathers who are involved in DCF cases and things like that, maybe work with some other fathers from the community who has had some positive outcomes in terms of DCF, if we really want to right this situation within the right way. And in terms of your question, Irvine, as far as the detriment, as far as the success, if I wasn't able to build a bond with my daughter, who knows where my daughter or myself would be at right now. We wouldn't have had this positive outcomes, and maybe I wouldn't probably be so much involved into the community. As I started to build a bond with my daughter, it was I'm doing that as a father, but then I started to understand there are other fathers. Like when I wrote my fatherhood monologue and I performed it, you know, there were other fathers who were coming to me afterwards saying, you know, I was incarcerated too, and I went through these different type of circumstances. I had other daughters coming to me and say, hey, you know, I remember going through this with my father as well. So to give them something tangible and something that they can be able to witness and be able to be in contact communication with, it helps tremendously.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very important that fathers are involved in their children's lives, no matter you know what they're going through, no matter their past or where they are. You can see it in our communities, right? Where I'm 37. I think there, right? Yep, 37. So in the 80s, it was the crack era. In the 90s, you see a lot of men of color getting incarcerated and leaving the families, and the mothers are left to raise the children. And you see the outcome, right? Young boys being raised by women. Fathers aren't in the homes, no discipline, emotional, so those are just some of the effects. And we see what's going on in our communities. We're losing our kids from the fathers not being present because of incarceration, not having a relationship, not being able to father. So it has an effect on our community, our families, our workforce, the money generated in our community. So fathers being involved in their lives is detrimental to to us moving forward in a positive manner. So I'm grateful to even have this conversation and to be able to have a relationship with my daughter and having a positive effect on her life, right? If I didn't have the will, or if I let me being incarcerated affect me to the point of giving up, then my daughter, I don't think she would be okay, but I don't know if she would be, in the same, have the same mindset that she has now, because she's seen me struggle. She's seen me go through things. She's seen me in bad situations. So she's seen me get into a car accident and almost die, right? She didn't see it with her eyes, but she knows, right? She knows that I was adopted and I was in the system, and that I didn't give up though. And I was always a staple in her life. So I think her seeing that is very important. Her seeing me being a part of the community, her seeing me doing things such as this is very detrimental in, the advancement of, and whatever she wants to do in life and her career, and, everything she's going to do. So this is very important.
And AILEEN, would you read something Mr. Holmes wrote in kind of similar regard?
Sure. So we didn't specifically ask Mr. Holmes about biases, but we did ask him the prior question about what kind of state agencies may be able to do to better support fathers, particularly incarcerated fathers. He had said, at first he wanted to set up a meeting with some state administrators, DCF or DOC administrators, and some of his incarcerated fathers to kind of brainstorm, provide perspectives on each side, and what may be best, what we could propose. He said, if that's not possible, I will say that every incarcerated father has the potential to impact their child if given the right skill sets and time. Please think of the content of my daughter's letter to remember the role, relevance, and resource of an incarcerated father. He also said that we need to adopt in the best interest of the child, particularly with DOC, in a manner that causes the reassessment of how security is used to limit or prohibit activities or engagements proven to strengthen family bonds while the parent's incarcerated. If not, the children of the incarcerated father will become the silent victims of the criminal justice system. Incarcerated fathers are the frontline defense to stave off the traumatic impact of a child feeling and witnessing losing their father to prison, and nobody wants to prevent said impact more than the father.
Wow. I mean, the fathers that we are hearing from today, they all had to be honestly perfect. They had to be perfect to have a fighting chance. I'm going to steal words from Demetrius Chamblee. I mean, he had to be perfect to have a fighting chance to have custody of his daughter. He had to be at his job for over 10 years. He had to be married. King of KEAYS, he had to do so much, really be super dad to be taken seriously as a father. His daughter had to be, have so much accomplishment, had to be #1 in the state so that people can see that, wow, his engagement as a father is important. I mean, Mr. Holmes, who is serving a lengthy sentence for double homicide, he had to be perfect for people, for us. I'm not gonna say people, I'm gonna talk about us, to be honest, for us, people, we all have biases, for us to take him seriously as a dad. He had to create a fatherhood program while incarcerated to be taken seriously as a dad. And it's as if society expects dad to be extraordinary, to even just be given that chance, which I don't even think is a chance. I mean, it's their right, they're the dads, to be with their children. And I want us to think about that. Why do we push dads to be extraordinary, to have that role in their kids' life? Why? Why do we do that? And how can we move forward by not asking them to be extraordinary to take that role, but just remember that by simply being dads, they can be involved. And a lot of dads want to be involved and should not just be discarded. Now, I don't have any more questions because I would like Demetrius, Keith, or if there's anything else from Mr. Holmes, if there's anything you want to share that I couldn't capture in the question that I asked, I would, love for y'all to take the floor and be able to voice, your story or anything else that you think that should be heard.
Yes, I wanted to say, how have I benefited from the relationship and the bond that me and my daughter have today? And my daughter actually, vicariously, I kind of got introduced to something that I use today and I speak about fluently inside of our community. So when I was fighting for more parenting time for my daughter, and when DCF got involved, I knew by having a community of brothers who have been through similar situations, I knew that, and from what she had been through and the trauma, that she needed some type of therapy. And I had never been to therapy at all. And my daughter, she's very shy. She's laid back. She's an introvert. And she's like, Daddy, I don't really want to go to therapy. I don't know this lady. I don't know. So I said, will you go if I go? And she was like, yeah, I'll go. I'll go if you go. So me and her went, and we both went for the first time. And it has been life-changing for us. I went, my daughter went. Now I have my own sessions. She had her own sessions. and we introduced it to my wife and my son and everything, and also to the community. So this is something that I promote, to be able to go, our people to be able to go to therapy, our community to be able to go to therapy. So I've benefited greatly through this, and my daughter has benefited greatly through this. But if it wasn't for her, you know, I probably wouldn't have never been introduced to therapy at this point. And it was a very key point with their age, my daughter and my son's age, and also too from everything that I've been through. So very, very monumental moment that she was able to introduce me to therapy throughout this process.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Yes, therapy is definitely a benefit to our community, and we need it. We need it, definitely, definitely. One thing I would like to say is I had a conversation recently with my mother, and one thing she said was when right before the adoption took place, right before I was adopted, the worker was about to take me from her custody and put me in a different home after I'd been in a few different homes before. And what she said she didn't understand why she would take me from her custody after I had been there for 9, 10, 11 months to move me. And that forced her to actually end up adopting me. So I just want the workers to be mindful of what you're doing in the child's life. If you're taking them out of one place, putting them in another place, putting them in another place, what the psychological effects that's going to have on that child. And, you know, just whatever you do, have the child's best interests at heart, you know? And really, another thing is me not knowing my biological father. That had a lot to do with me being in my child's life, right? Not knowing my identity, not knowing where I come from. So a child not knowing their father could could mean all the world and them succeeding or failing. So that relationship with their father is detrimental in them growing and knowing who they are and knowing where they come from. And so I would like, you know, you try to make the best effort possible to make that happen.
That was so beautiful. I do have one more thing for Mr. Holmes, if everyone would like. I thought that this was very powerful. After sharing his daughter's card, this gets at how has your relationship with your child impacted you? He said, if I was to die while in prison, know that my daughter thinks and feels this way, I would rest in peace. And if I could only leave prison with one thing, it will be that 16 by 14 inch card with said words. And then just as maybe a closing, if you will, from Mr. Holmes, he said, to have this platform to express my limitless love for my only child will become one of the most important things I will ever pen in my life. I am also humbled by this opportunity to have the ears of you all whom in the best interest of the child is not a saying, but your commitment when others fail. Thank you for this moment.
Thank you all for having us. Thank you, Demetrius, Keith, and Mr. Holmes. AILEEN, thank you for reading his words. Thank you for having us here today. Thank you, Jennifer.
All right, thank you for the panel. Demetrius, Keith, IRVINE, AILEEN, nice to meet you guys, but my guys, good job on the panel today. So we are at the end of the first day of our conference. I feel like we have had a lot of information. One of the things that happens oftentimes when you go to a conference like this, you can take the whole afternoon and kind of like think about your fatherhood work. You can think about how you're gonna do things a little bit different, what kind of energy, what kind of empowerment you're gonna bring to this work. And so I think that Mr. Fothergill is always good at putting a nice wrap up on the day. So rather than me give a speech, I will pass it to William Fothergill to give us some closing remarks. And I look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow afternoon. We start at 12 o'clock tomorrow. And so let's get in here and make it happen. Mr. Fothergill, the floor is yours.
My brother, you put me on the spot. but I'm, as they always say, be ye ready. So I'm a little ready. But again, this was a powerful day. Again, every component weaved itself into a beautiful tapestry. From the information that we received, so information was put together with such delicate care, charges us to really see the impact of the fathering experience on our communities and in our systems. You know, I just like to look at the fathering experience is the man experience, the impact on men in the context of within the fathering experience. And then, you know, getting to the motivation to lift up how we want to frame and how we want to look at fathers and men in our communities, how we want to and what we want to do with